expressed are those of the hosts and guests and not necessarily those of KVOI or its sponsors.
Good afternoon and welcome to Eye on the Ball. I'm Jay Gonzales, your host today, as Steve Rivera's taking the day off with some other business that he's got to take care of, and you're listening to us on 1030 The Voice. Where we've had another one of those days where there's just stuff all over the board, so we're going to talk about some of that. But we're also going to talk baseball today. We're going to bring in Todd Walsh, who's the pre- and post-game host for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Also does the same thing for the Arizona Coyotes, so we'll probably talk a little bit of hockey as well. But there's lots going on, as there is, it seems to be every day, and new developments related to COVID and to season starting. And really at the top of the list, something that maybe brings a little bit of concern for us who are rooting for there to be college football, and in particular Pac-12 football. The University of California announced today that they are going to begin the fall semester with fully remote instruction, meaning no students will be in class, although I spoke to a couple of people who said that doesn't mean that Cal's not going to have athletes on campus. The campus is not closed. Students will be on campus. They just won't be going to class. So as it relates to whether or not Cal can play football, it remains to be seen. It's not off the board. It looks like they've sort of got a little bit of a loophole there, because there was a lot of discussion when the colleges were talking about whether or not there would be students on campus, saying if there were no students on campus, how can they have football? But it looks like there's still going to be some football. At least that's what everybody's hoping. And as you know, I'm rooting big time for that. I'd love to see football in the fall. Although I got to say, we still got to believe that there's a really good chance that we're headed towards the spring. And, we're just seeing a lot more of that as we go along. We found out that a group of high school coaches in Arizona, including more than a dozen of them from Southern Arizona, have sent a letter to the AIA, the Arizona Interscholastic Association, asking them to move football to the spring. We know in the last couple of days and a little bit before that, the state of New Mexico and California have moved their fall sports to the spring. So you got Arizona kind of sitting in between. How can they go on with sports if everybody else around them is not? So the football coaches have laid out a lot of reasons why they want to do that, and it all makes a lot of sense. And they know it's going to be hard because you're going to have issues with referees, issues with coaches who coach more than one sport, players who play more than one sport. But the reality that they see is that high schools don't have the resources that, say, the colleges or even the NFL do to manage what's happening with COVID. So they're saying, let's just wait. Let's wait. Let's give it a chance. Let's wait till the spring, and let's do it all then when things can kind of be in order. And I kind of agree with that with the high schools. It seems to make sense. How are you going to, just at the college level with the number of athletes that they have, how are they going to manage it? There's a lot of schools who feel that they can't. And they're trying, and you've got some of the smaller leagues who are moving their sports into the spring. So if they have to do that, how can high schools really say, we're gonna go against that and do what we're going to do?
Jay, even on top of that, I mean, how many schools right now, including here in Arizona, high school or college, aren't even 100% sure how they're going to resume classes, let alone how they're going to resume sports. And I think that's part of the trepidation. You don't have a roadmap yet, so it's really hard to agree to something when you don't know how it's going to play out.
Right, and that was the big point in the letter. They're saying, we don't even know that we're going to have students on campus. We don't even have a plan, a definitive plan. We're about a month out when they say school is supposed to start. We don't even have a definitive plan to do that. How can we be playing sports? Or how can we even be thinking about playing sports? So it looks like the football coaches want to get their sport at least into the spring.
And, the upside to it, I mean, I'll go ahead and say this. I think the weather would be better. It would be more helpful to the athletes, not having those August practices and the 100-degree heat, I think definitely would help out. And, yeah, it's a little unusual, but, hey, these are unusual times. So if they did say in the spring, I'll be honest with you, I'd feel a lot better about that, because now I feel like something is set. I can look forward to that. Then I can say, okay, it's unusual, but this year we're going to have football in the spring.
Right. And then, and the other point the coaches made is if they try to jam this thing into the fall, there's always a chance that it's going to get, a season's going to get canceled in the middle of the season. They feel there's just more certainty to giving these football players and the sports and other athletes the full experience and not have to worry, is my season going to get canceled in a couple of weeks? What's going to happen? So, again, there's a lot of issues that would need to be worked out. I mean, one of the issues is a very simple one: referees. Football referees, they umpire baseball, they ref basketball. They're going to have some issues with that, but they feel like we can work that out. And so I think it makes a lot of sense for them to take the opportunity to do that.
They'll also have to figure out the 2 and 3 sport athletes, the kids who do play football, then basketball, then baseball, or whatever, it may be. So, and I'm sure there will be ways to figure that out, and maybe some difficult choices will have to be made. But again, these are very unusual times.
It's very unusual, and you want to talk about unusual. How about the fact that the NFL announced today that they're not going to be having any preseason games. We've always talked about the unfairness of having to pay the same amount for a preseason game as a regular season game and all that, and there's TV money related to that. And they just announced today no preseason games. They're just going to give the teams a certain number of days to get themselves worked through camp. They're increasing the number of players they can invite to camp, and it's going to be game on in mid-September.
And it looks like 80-man rosters has been mostly agreed to. But, it's funny you say that. You read my mind, because that is the chief complaint I hear from NFL season ticket holders. I don't want to go to the preseason games. Why am I paying for this? You get one series maybe of a starting offense or a starting defense, and it's what's the point of preseason football?
Right. I mean, I don't even watch those. I'll say this:
if I'm starving, I'll watch them.
I'll say this: I watched the Hall of Fame game because that's the first game. It's still the dead of summer, and I'll watch that for about a quarter. and then I change the channel, and then I don't watch any more preseason games. So it's again, it's an odd time, and to know that the NFL is giving up its preseason games, that just tells you how weird this is. And then we're getting ready for baseball. Baseball starts on Thursday. The Diamondbacks are going to be in San Diego this weekend, and Todd Walsh is going to come in and talk to us a little bit about what that's going to look like. I'm really interested to see how they're going to do the broadcast. I watched some of the Diamondbacks broadcast of their spring training. We shouldn't even call it spring training, right? Summer training game with the Dodgers last night, just to see what it looked like and what it sounded like. It was a little creepy with the the cutouts behind home plate, but and then you're hearing crowd noise and all that kind of thing, but trying to give it some normalcy for for the fans who are watching. And other than that, and I'll tell Todd, it looked the same to me, but Todd's the pre and post game host. He's going to have to figure out some things to do, and I'm going to be interested to see just what he's going to do with his job. But Todd's sort of a local guy. He's from Rochester, went to the U of A. He's got some roots here, still got a lot of friends here, and it's going to be fun to catch up with Todd and talk to him a little bit. And I, again, just want to see what's this going to look like for the fan as the baseball season gets started. And he's got some work. He does similar work with the Coyotes, and they're getting ready to start the NHL playoffs in, I believe, August the 2nd. So we're going to see what his balancing act is going to look like. So let's go ahead and take a break, and we're going to have Todd Walsh on the line as soon as we get back.
Your source for trusted local news and talk. 1030, The Voice.
It's those guys from Tucson Appliance Company, the best appliance company in Tucson.
For the month of July, we're going to donate 2% of our sales to a local charity from in-stock purchases.
Come shop at our store and work with our amazing sales team.
Dustin, David,
Ryan,
Alex, me,
and Peter. You can choose from a list of local charities for us to donate to.
The only way we can give back is if you shop local. Only at Tucson Appliance, where our low price is your priority.
There's a place in our house For 70 years, Benjamin Supply has been keeping Tucson flowing. Hygiene is our business. We help you achieve extreme clean. Minimize germ spreading with a hands-free sensor faucet. Forget the paper panic with a washlet seat. And speaking of waterworks, a big thanks to plumbers for their essential efforts during this health crisis. Shop our downtown showroom by appointment. Call us at 777-7000 or see all the products online at benjaminsupply.com.
Thanks to Benjamin Plumbing Supply.
Time to update those old kitchen cabinets? Call the Window Depot today. The Window Depot is not only the #1 warehouse for windows and doors, we now have a great selection of kitchen and bath cabinets at Tucson's best prices. The Window Depot is Tucson's top spot for granite and quartz countertops to finish the new kitchen or the replacement of that old worn out Formica. So call us today at 290-8545 or 622-6430. The Window Depot, windows, doors, granite, and new kitchens.
Where you bank really does matter. Hughes Federal Credit Union is proud to be recognized by Forbes as one of Arizona's best credit unions 3 years in a row. This national recognition highlights our commitment to high-quality products and services, our customer service, digital services, and financial advice. At Hughes Federal Credit Union, we offer low rates on loans, lower fees, and many free services. Make the switch. Join Hughes today. Visit hughesfcu.org/best. Certain restrictions apply. Insured by NCUA.
This is The Voice, 1030, Tucson's trusted news and talk.
Welcome back to Eye on the Ball. This is Jay Gonzales on 1030 The Voice. Steve Rivera is out today, but we've got a great guest coming in to tell us a little bit about what we're about to see in Major League Baseball. Our old friend Todd Walsh, U of A graduate, has been working with the Arizona Diamondbacks and the Coyotes for nearly 20 years. So Todd hopefully has a lot of insight into what's going on at Major League Baseball. Todd, welcome.
Jay, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good. It's good to hear your voice. I've been tracking your run of late, and I was actually rummaging through my garage trying to find the earliest byline that I can remember working a game alongside you with, and I came up short. But it's been a long, long time, and it's just good to be with you and be on the air in Tucson. It's like home, so thank you.
Well, I appreciate you joining us, Todd. I'm really curious as to what's this going to look like as you guys get set for the season. I think people need to know that the announcers, the play-by-play guys, you aren't going to be traveling with the team, and somehow you're going to have to find a way to give us a show and from wherever you're going to be. Tell us a little bit about how this is going to work as the season gets going, and with the Diamondbacks in San Diego.
Yeah, I mean, it's the great unknown. I've thought so much about this over the last few weeks when I knew this was coming, and I just consider it an epic challenge in the scope of my career arc, that's for sure. We just won't have the same tools at our disposal that I've been used to for the last 33 years in doing this, and 20 plus with Fox Sports Arizona and in television. But I know this, and Jay, you filed some stories in some strange places and probably really bizarre circumstances along the way. You find a way, and I look forward to figuring out how to create, something on what we have, which is a blank canvas every single night in our pre- and post-game shows. And the interesting thing for me is, in this work stoppage, we were allowed to really just do whatever we felt compelled to do on the digital side on Fox Sports Arizona. So we obviously started to incorporate the Zoom interviews, the virtual interviews. And I noticed something at the very beginning of this that has held true to this day. I actually did one this morning. I talked to Brandon Webb, and he was in San Diego or in Orange County. And I'm sensing something that's happening in these Zoom interviews that I think is going to be an added benefit and another layer. And that is that people are a little more comfortable to speak, believe it or not. You'd think that there's another wall, and yes, there is. You can't hide from that. But in just the physical makeup of the setup, you're looking, and yes, there's clearly a virtual wall, but you're looking at somebody right in the eye, essentially. And for the last quarter of a century in television, I've been sitting, side by side. Let's say it's a studio setup, knee to knee, with my upper torso contorted in a whatever degree I had to get to the one camera, if I'm lucky, two. There's a lighting person in there. There are lights that are making the building really hot. There's a stage manager, and there's an audio person, and then there's the person I'm talking to. And I'm trying to lower the temperature, literally and figuratively, in the room for that person to be comfortable. And it's an awkward setup. It's always been that way, and athletes are accustomed to that, but it's still awkward. But when I'm talking to people in these Zoom calls, that's gone. And it seems like every time I do one, somebody says something that surprises me. They go a little farther, or if I'm doing a three-way Zoom, someone will say something to the other person. They're trying to connect to them, and they're doing it because they're looking them right in the eye. And I kind of look forward to seeing how that plays out. Nothing will replace being in the room, in the clubhouse, in the locker room. That I've had the best seat in the house my entire career, and I get it, and I know what I've been able to cultivate from that. But to me, this is just another challenge, and I'm already seeing what I hope is a way to mine a little more. It's going to be different. It will look different. But I do think there's something there, and I kind of want to get at it.
So will you have a setup for either pregame and or postgame where somebody will, you'll be able to get a player to get in front of a camera so that you can interview them, and so you're still going to have player interviews and that type of thing.
Yeah. So as I understand it, this is all a work in progress, and we have some loose plans, and things are still evolving as we speak. But as I'm watching how our game production is taking place already in these exhibition games with the Dodgers, and the way that summer camp has gone, for instance, on the post-game show, what's the first thing that happens in the post-game show? I talk, if the Diamondbacks don't win, I talk to my analyst. I'm going to be with Mark Grace or Brandon Webb. We'll just be in separate studios, but we will be on the air together, and then we'll go and throw to Diamondbacks manager Torey Lovello, or in hockey it's Rick Tocchet, and there will be a virtual setup for that with the other members of the media dialed into the same situation. So that's not going to change. If the Diamondbacks win, we'll get a player, I presume, on the field. I think at home games for sure. I'm not sure how the road games will set up. I think that's another aspect that will be evolving. During the day, for pregame shows, instead of Jody Jackson and myself wandering around the clubhouse, during the afternoon, they are going to there'll be a schedule of players that are available via virtual interviews, and I'm going to guess that along the way we're the rights holders and we have the relationships that we'll be able to do some semblance of exclusivity, and I don't see why that wouldn't happen. So to me, it's just going to appear differently, and I think people are already so accustomed to that now. It's just going to be on your TV or on your handheld device. Again, there is nothing like the immediacy. But it's not going to happen, and I don't know when it will happen again.
Right.
I don't know.
This is the level of weird for all of us that that nobody's ever had to go through and had to see. And and you're right. Yeah, as a reporter, I filed stories from some strange areas, but at least I got to be there, right? And so I was telling Tom Callahan here that I watched some of the broadcasts last night. Just the game broadcast. Mm-hmm. It didn't seem any different to me, and honestly, I hadn't done my research on it yet, so I didn't even realize that Steve and Bob Brenly were not there. I thought you guys would be with the team. I didn't even realize that they weren't there, so it looked the same to me. And maybe that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, and when you think of the technology that we have now and HDTV, and there'll probably be another level of that along the way. I think Steve Bethune probably has the hardest job judging plays, but the hardest thing to learn, and I'd learned the hard way calling Tucson Toros games in 1987, 1988, is to judge a home run, and that's where you can get caught. And now, thanks to social media, you can look really dumb if you don't get it right.
Right.
But once you figure out that you're not looking at the ball, you're looking at the outfielder. The outfielder will tell you everything you need to know. That's an instinct that Steve has now. And I even picked up a couple of things that Bob Brunley did in both of those telecasts where, he picks up things. He's the best color analyst, I think, in the business. So he doesn't need to be in the ballpark. You might not see a simple twist, something happening on the field, but I guarantee you those cameras are going to catch it and bring it back to you and back around. And Bob and Steve know how to navigate that with our producer and director. So, and for me, Jay, the pregame show, outside of me not sitting right next to Brandon or Mark, it feels to me like it's going to look and feel the same. And we're just going to be challenged with, I like to go off the beaten path, and especially when I'm on the road and I have a camera, and if I can, walk across the streets of the Roberto Clemente Bridge outside of PNC Park and do something there, those are the little things that we're going to have to figure out a way to be able to do. But I know that we will, because we always try to make every show, the best show. Just like, you want all your leads to be the best leads you can possibly get. It's the same drill, and but it's a challenge, and I can't wait to navigate it. But I don't think it's going to look that different.
Well, and I mean, we are so starved for sports. I mean, you guys could butcher this 100 different ways, and we probably really wouldn't care. Now, I know you won't, because you guys are pros, and you'll like you said, you'll figure it out. But I mean, I was watching that game last night, and I thought, oh, that's what it feels like, and that's what it feels like to watch a game that you didn't already know how it ended or something like that. So, there's a lot of that.
The thing that the thing that I will crave, and you just can't recreate, is post game, and that's where the emotion is, and that's when you walk and what it's like to talk to Lute Olson after losing on the road at Pauley Pavilion,
right?
And and Torey Lovello is really good at managing his emotions. He knows exactly what he's doing, and I can count probably on maybe two hands the number of times on the road when I'm the reporter and I walk in, I have to go in there first. I have to bring the cable and the camera into his office first, and then everybody else walks in. So there's sometimes a 2-minute window or 45 seconds, which feels like an eternity. Those Matt Kemp walk-offs at Dodger Stadium a couple of years ago off Archie Bradley. I mean, I've been doing this forever, and walking. First of all, I had to walk through the clubhouse. They fell out of first place after being in first place all summer, that way, that dramatically. And then I walked into Torey's office, and I have a great rapport. I really admire him and respect him, but I could feel the heat on the back of his neck. And that's the stuff that, you're just not going to get for a while. But fans are smart enough to know when the guy's still feeling it. You can tell. I mean, we're not dumb now. We can pay attention, and it's our job to bring it out through the Zoom and through the virtual setup. But I think we will.
Well, we've got about a minute here, so what's on your mind for the very first game? What are we going to see from you right out of the box?
I just can't wait to sit down and say, welcome to Diamondbacks baseball. I've been thinking about that, dreaming about it, wondering how I was going to feel, and I don't know how I'm going to feel. At times when I rehearse my open, I get pretty emotional. I haven't even finished it yet, and I have to stop. But then we've got an hour pregame show. It's going to be like an opening day, but a little more. I want to talk clearly about how I sense the Diamondbacks are understanding this situation, COVID-19, and dealing with it. And there's some other nuances to that with Mark Race and I that will but it's going to be an opening day pregame show in the most extraordinary circumstance in my adult history.
Ever. All right. Well, Todd, let's get with you after the break, and let's talk a little bit about on the field.
Sure.
All right. So hang around, and we'll be right back.
CBS News at the top and bottom of every hour. 1030 The Voice, Tucson's trusted local news and talk.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Worries about the timing of an economic stimulus package weighed on stocks near the bell, but the market managed a mostly higher finish. The Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 160, the S&P added 5, the Nasdaq lost 87. Texas Instruments is higher in late trading after it offered a better-than-expected outlook for third-quarter revenue. For the second quarter, earnings rose to nearly $1.4 billion, even as revenue fell. United Airlines posted a $1.6 billion loss as the coronavirus pandemic crushed travel demand. Its loss was wider than expected, but United Airlines shares are modestly higher after the bell. The only thing most Walmart employees will be doing this Thanksgiving is eating turkey. The retailer said it will not open on Thanksgiving Day this year. It is a reflection of changing consumer spending patterns accelerated by the coronavirus pandemic. Larry Kofsky, Bloomberg Radio.
CBS News Update. He resisted mask wearing for months, but with the coronavirus raging across the country, President Trump is now asking Americans to follow the recommendations of public health experts.
To use masks, socially distance, and employ vigorous hygiene. Wash your hands every chance you get while sheltering high-risk populations.
The president expects advances in treatment and vaccines in a very short period of time. The administration and congressional Republicans are working on a new $1 trillion COVID relief package, but it's likely to face opposition from Democrats, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer.
From all indications, the bill will prioritize corporate special interests over workers and Main Street businesses. It won't provide hazard pay for essential workers. It won't provide new funding to state, local, and tribal governments, or enough investments in communities of color that have been ravaged by the virus.
CBS News Update, I'm Pam Coulter.
These days, most families are concerned with having the right insurance coverage. Protecting your family, home, auto, and other valuable possessions can be challenging and sometimes expensive. Crest Insurance gives you flexible options and solutions while saving you money. Insurance is not one size fits all, and at Crest, we find the coverage that's best for you and your family. Visit us online at www.crestins.com or call us toll free at 888-881-5765.
Being named the 2020 El Tour de Tucson dedication recipient was such an honor. I have been a part of El Tour in the past, and I know about some of these amazing names that have been dedication recipients in the past, but it was an honor to be chosen for that, not only for me, but for my organization that supports people with disabilities.
I've met so many people through the riding and through El Tour that are now some of my closest and dearest friends.
One of the things that makes El Tour, so safe and so well ran is all the law enforcement that gets involved, blocking up the roads. My favorite part of the course on the newer course was the backside of Pistol Hill.
I think what's amazing about El Tour is there's something for everyone's ability level. It includes the opportunity to be out there. You can even do a 1-miler. You can do something at home if you're limited to being indoors. That's what's great about it, is all abilities are encouraged. It's very inclusive.
It's your town. Get up and get involved.
Hey, it's Chris from Wake Up Tucson. Big Wednesday show. Dan Shearer from the Green Valley News. Breitbart author Joel Pollack will be on the show. Don and Linda from the Triangle Tea Guest Ranch will be here talking about the Garlic Festival. And Benny White, Republican candidate for recorder, stops by. Wake Up Tucson.
Weekday mornings, 6 to 9 on 1030 The Voice. Trusted local news and talk.
Tucson's source for trusted news and talk. 1030 The Voice.
Welcome back to Eye on the Ball on 1030 The Voice. I'm Jay Gonzales. Steve Rivera is out today, but we've got Todd Walsh in from Fox Sports Arizona, who covers the Diamondbacks and the Coyotes. And we're going to stick with a little baseball here, Todd, because again, that's my first love. But I want to get to some hockey here, because you've got the Coyotes in the NHL playoffs, and not everybody's in that as well. So, but with baseball, I mean, this is as it is for everybody else. This is a weird time for them. With everything they do just to play. But now you got a 60-game season. It's a sprint. It's going to be a sprint and not the marathon. And you got to get off to a good start, and that's what you're hearing from everybody. And I know that from Torey Lovullo's comments this morning regarding the two games at Dodger Stadium, he's a little concerned about how they looked in those two games. So where are they headed, and what can we expect to see?
Well, clearly he is, and the offense struggled, but I think it was more responsive. I'm sure you heard them talking about to the two pitchers that pitched. And as you know, Jay, coaches can be they can use a loss or two to their advantage, and I think maybe this got his team's attention. They talked a lot about, even during the entire hiatus and the stoppage, that we got to be ready to roll when we get the call. And I know that was the message to the team, and it sounded and looked like it during the earlier days of summer camp. But this last 48 hours at Dodger Stadium, I think is a way to say we got to be ready here. And he also knows that he didn't have his pitchers 1, 2, 3, 4. Any of the top guys, the front end of the rotation, were not on the mound at Dodger Stadium, and those are the guys that are going to set the tone. Madison Bumgarner to Robbie Ray to Zach Gallen. Those are the guys that I think are going to keep them in just about every game that they go out and get on the mound for. I liked this team going into the original camp, which feels like a lifetime ago.
Right.
And I like the fact, I know the Dodgers are the cream of the crop, but I kind of like a truncated sprint with them instead of a 162-game grind. I want to see the first turn, like the first turn at the Indy 500. Where are they after the first couple weeks? And, 1 loss equals 3, and who knows what's going to happen on that first sweep through. So I'm not all that concerned about what I saw. I think it's a great tool and a great wake-up call.
Well, and you put it great. Like, coming out of that first turn at Indy, and who's in the lead, and who can stay up there.
Mm-hmm.
You bring in a guy like Madison Bumgarner. First of all, a guy that I'm sure every Diamondback fan absolutely hated up until he joined the team.
Yeah.
now he's your best friend. But when you see somebody like that, that comes on and all the changes that take place, in an off season. I mean, when you start talking about, strengths and weaknesses, and where are they for the Diamondbacks? If I'm looking at my fantasy baseball team, where am I looking for to find some Diamondbacks?
Well, I'm going to draft Ketel Marte and do anything I can. I think he's in the top whatever consideration for MVP because for a reason. And I think with the designated hitter now, they're going to be able to rotate him out every now and then, keep him off his feet. I think he is appointment television every time he comes to the plate. I love the additions in the outfield of Starling Marte and Cole Calhoun. And Calhoun, to me, is the story that I wish I was trailing that for a full marathon. A guy that grew up here, went to Arizona State, and then played in the shadow of Mike Trout for a long, long time, hit 33 homers a year ago, and now is coming to play in the ballpark that he grew up watching the hometown team play. I just think that's you can't write that stuff. And there it is, and that changes the whole dynamic to me of that outfield. I want to see how Christian Walker does in his next year here. I know Kevin Cron is a little beat up, but my goodness, you can't put him in AAA anymore. This is a legitimate power hitter, and with the designated hitter, I want to see him get some at-bats and a chance because he's a game changer. And I like this team's swagger. I like the way they play the game. Their offense can do some damage, and I know they don't have a lot of depth in the bullpen. I think Archie Bradley. It sounds like he's